So I want to talk about an issue that is very emotive here in the UK. I'm sure it is everywhere, in fact, and that is sentencing, judicial sentencing. We've had a phenomenon in recent months with a spate of acid attacks in this country. Most of those cases have been thugs just attacking random people in the street, particularly the cases in London. But this particularly high-profile case I've just been reading about. On this occasion, the attacker knew the victim. So I'm going to read out a bit of the report. I'm not going to read all of it because it's quite long, but as usual with these things, I'll put a link to it. And I want to express how I feel about this because I think there's real fundamental problems. A teenage schoolgirl has been detained over a wicked acid attack which left a fellow pupil scarred for life. Scarred for life. That's important to bear in mind. Emily Bowen, now 18, poured drain cleaner into a viola case owned by Molly Young after finding out she was dating her former boyfriend. Miss Young was badly hurt after the acid spilled over her legs at Knox Academy in Haddington, East Lothian. Sentencing Bowen to 21 months, Sheriff Michael O'Grady said the courts would not tolerate the criminal use of acid. And what I want to read out, like I said, I'm not going to read out the whole report, but I want to read out the effects that the victim has felt. Just get to the right paragraph here if you just bear with me a second. The victim, now also 18, both girls were 17 when this happened, was taken to Edinburgh Royal Infirmary for treatment and eventually transferred to St John's Hospital for plastic surgery. The court heard that she continues to suffer psychological problems and has shooting pains and nerve damage due to the attack. So be in no doubt, this is a vicious, heinous, and life-changing crime. The victim's had plastic surgery, she suffered psychological attacks. I imagine that's not going to go anytime soon. As I understand, the attack happened at the end of last year. Sheriff O'Grady told Bowen the attack was utterly wicked, adding, "You have left a young woman to suffer a terrifying ordeal, and she will be both physically and mentally scarred for the rest of her life." The rest of her life. So why then, Sheriff O'Grady, did you give such a weak sentence? This is what I find utterly galling and utterly infuriating. I cannot understand the mindset of judges in this country, and frankly, it makes his words look just pathetic. It must be plain to anyone who resorts to acid for whatever purpose that the courts will not tolerate its possession or use for any criminal act. It is with considerable regret that I have come to the conclusion that nothing but a custodial sentence is appropriate. Why does he regret that? If this so-called judge had any sense of proportionality, it would not be 21 months. I mean, let's put this in context. She's 18. She'll be out of prison when she's beginning her 20s. She's got the rest of her life ahead of her. It's nothing. It's nothing. And what I find utterly galling is he's using the right words. So he's stating the obvious. It's an awful crime. So why does this man who has the power to impose a sentence give such a weak sentence? That's what I find infuriating. What if it was his daughter? Or the defense solicitor, Jim Stevenson, said his client had recently been diagnosed with autism and was suffering from depression, and she struggles to deal with things. I've suffered from depression. I wouldn't throw acid at someone. And there's plenty of people without it. I think that's just, I mean, it's his job. He has to do his job. But really, this is what she's capable of at the age of 17. But what I really want to focus on here is this ridiculous sentence, 21 months. Now, it could be worse. There are judges in the UK who wouldn't even give a custodial sentence. Weak, pathetic judges. What I feel so strongly about is that the public need to be empowered. Now, I'm not calling for vigilante-style justice. I understand that judges need to take away a certain level of emotions. They need to think very meticulously. They need to look at all the facts. But we are seeing far too many examples of this, and his words are just phony. How can you, on one hand, say that we're not going to tolerate this, then impose such a weak sentence? If the Scottish courts were not going to tolerate this, he would be imposing a sentence of at least 5 years minimum. I mean, it can work the other way. If there are sentences that are too excessive, then I believe the public should be empowered to appeal it and say that's too harsh. But the consistency is that there's too many examples of this happening. Now, Scotland works on a different legal system from England and Wales. As I understand it, in England and Wales, members of the public have a right to put forward a case review if sentencing is deemed to be too soft, too inappropriate for the gravity of the crime. So anyone in England and Wales can refer a case, can raise a case with the appeals court and the sentencing review, as I understand. I don't know quite how it works in Scotland. I've contacted the Scottish legal system to try and establish if this can be reviewed. I'm not saying that out of spite. I'm not saying it out of vindictiveness. I'm saying it out of a basic sense of justice. 21 months of scarring a young woman for life is not justice. I mean, it's just not. She's going to come out of prison. She'll be in her early 20s. It's not, that is not justice. So if we're really going to get serious about this evil, destructive crime, the sentencing has to match that. And these judges are so infuriating when they say things like, oh, we're shocked by this and it's horrifying. But then when they have the power to act, they don't do it. And these people have a lot of power. Let's not forget that. Judges are in a position of authority and power. Now, I can't contact this judge directly. I would. I wouldn't be issuing any threats or anything like that, but I would tell them point blank, I think you're a disgrace. And these people, they never have any contact details. So they're in a position of power, and I don't think the public really, I don't think it goes far enough in giving the public empowerment to say this is not right. How can you give such a wicked crime less than 2 years? And there was another case, a guy was caught with acid that he was going to use. In his case, he didn't use it, he got a year. We have to pass sentences in this country. We need to demand that the criminal justice system pass a sentence that reflect how serious these crimes are. And I can think a few things worse than throwing acid at someone. I mean, really, it should be up there as morally repugnant as paedophilia and other such crimes. These idiot judges just infuriate me. They're not living in the real world. At least that's the impression they give. Because if this guy really was imposing justice, he would have given a longer sentence. His words are hollow. And I want to know how people like him are held to account. It infuriates me. It really, really infuriates me. So I want to make a few points here. I am not calling for vigilante justice, okay? I believe that someone has a right to due process. I believe all the facts need to be presented. And I don't advocate the other extreme of, I'm not even saying she should get her whole life in jail, but at least it should match the gravity of the crime. And this is a very serious crime. The sentence does not reflect that. And I think most people would agree with that. And again, I understand judges cannot just act on emotions. I understand they need to detach themselves from that. I get that. But they should be accountable. And when they continue to pass weak sentences that the vast majority of people do not think are appropriate, then they're clearly not accountable. If a politician enacts a policy that's unpopular, people can vote them out of office. Even the media is more accountable than judges. But I see no moral difference. If a politician imposes a controversial policy, you can vote against them, you can stand against them. There are methods that you can use. With judges, unless the appeals process can be put into action, then these people are not held to account. And if I had a chance to speak to this guy, I would say, what planet are you living on? You had this case where a young woman's life was destroyed. You spoke tough, then you acted soft. What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? And I cannot understand the rationale behind it. The defence's excuses were flimsy, and that's a smear on people with autism. And incidentally, this was such a serious case that the school actually had to be put into lockdown because there was chemicals in the compound. So they had to actually get the fire brigade involved. I mean, that's sinister. But it's not just about this case. I'm using this case as an example. Sadly, there are many, many others. And I don't mind if people think I'm a right winger on crime because I am. I am socially conservative on crime. I believe that when people deliberately hurt other people in this way, they need to be held to account. They need to face justice. I'm not calling for, you know, hang him and flog him from the nearest lamppost. I'm talking simply about fairness. And this delusional judge just doesn't. I mean, put it this way: if that was someone close to me, and I thought that was say that had happened to my girlfriend, I would be absolutely seeing red because it does not match the gravity of the crime. This problem we're having with acid attacks doesn't look like it's going away anytime soon, and I think that soft sentencing is only going to encourage perpetrators. We need to give them very, very hard sentencing. I would say an appropriate sentence here would be probably 10 years at least. I would say 10 years is about right. Probably longer, actually, but 21 months is nothing. And I think this judge needs to face the heat peacefully. I think he needs to face heat for it. And that's the problem in this country. I don't know how the UK compares to other countries, but in Britain, judges, they're not accountable. They're really not. I mean, in England and Wales, yes, the public has the power to raise appeals on sentencing, which is used many, many times, but that surely is an indicator of how flawed the system is, how out of touch so many of these so called judges are. I mean, it wasn't long ago where that woman escaped prison despite stabbing her boyfriend repeatedly. Um, and she escaped it because she was some academic, I forget her name now, but that worked up a lot of people, and rightly so. It was almost like she was too smart to go to prison. So I'll leave it there. There isn't really much more to say. This case isn't unique, unfortunately. There will be more to come, and there have. But if I ever get into politics, I will be wanting to really push some sort of reforms on this. I believe judges need to be held to account. Too many judges continue to behave this way, putting down sentences that just don't match the gravity of the crime, and they're not held to account for it. You know, if a politician, like I say, was done something that infuriated the public, then at least the public has the power to vote them out of office. With judges, that doesn't apply, and I just find it disgusting. So no wonder people lose faith in the criminal justice system when judges are not living in the real world. And these people, like I say, they're very difficult to reach out to. It's very difficult to find any sort of. I have sent an email to the Scottish legal system. I forget exactly what it was, but because I'm pretty angry right now, I'm not really thinking coherently. But yeah, I sent a message to them and requested to know what process is there for appealing this decision because it's absurd. So, shame on you, Sheriff Michael O'Grady. Shame on you for not imposing justice. And I just hope the young woman can find a happier future. The victim can find some way to see a brighter future. I mean, this is life changing. So I really, really do believe that we need to put much more pressure peacefully on the criminal justice system so that these idiots, weak judges are held to account. And I don't care if that's insulting. I don't care if I sound undiplomatic or whatever with this. I am angry. I'm pissed off about this. It's wrong. And I'm not talking about, lynch mob justice and, the public get to decide every single sentence exactly as the public wanted. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it has to reflect somewhat more than it currently is. Because at present, the vast majority of sentences do not match public sentiments. That's wrong. It's undemocratic. And I'm not saying it should be exactly what the public demand, but at least it should be a bit more reflective of that. Let me know your thoughts and thanks for watching.